You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Business Innovators Radio. I am your host, Ralph Brogden, and joining me today is Randi Levin. She is the founder and CEO of Randi Levin Coaching. She is a transitional life strategist. I can't wait to find out what that is. She's an author, a speaker, and a reinvention expert. She also has a way with words because I love these titles. Randi's core belief is that we have the choice and the power to carve out and curate our own legacy based on embracing our ongoing evolution. Randi is a contributor and a featured expert for Huff Post, Thrive Global, DivorceForce, Three Tomatoes, and she is also published in a variety of national publications and podcasts. Her workshops have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, and she is a contributing author in the anthology Get Results. Randi Levin, thanks so much for being on Business Innovators Radio.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm happy to be here.
Well, that is quite a biography you've got, and I really love the way you describe what you do. So now I'm intrigued. You've got me hooked. Tell me, what is a transitional life strategist?
Okay, so in a nutshell, it's a transformational coach. Okay, So if we think about some of those decisions we may have made at, let's say 22 out of college or in our early 20s out of grad school, right? We think we've got it all like locked down. We've got those whole life decisions being made. We're going to do this and be that, have this. Maybe we got married and started families. And then something happened to us. We turned 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 years old. And guess what? There's a gap, personally and professionally, in who and what we said we were going to do and what we're actually doing. So I coach that gap, and I coach around where you want your legacy to be, because legacy is not the thing we leave behind. It's a power tool that we can really use, Ralph, today to really have the life we most want. So you may even want to call me a legacy catalyst.
Another excellent title to add to your list of things here. I really like that, and I think that is so typical of the way our lives seem to work. We think we've got it all figured out in our 20s. In our 30s, we have a kind of a rude awakening. In 40s, it's really beginning to be turbulent, and so we really got to get a grip on who we are and where we want to be before we know it. That time's going to be gone.
Well, exactly. And one of the things I always say, too, is that we live one life, but many chapters. We're not supposed to be doing only one thing or necessarily have only one job. We change and we evolve, and we have to be mindful of what those switches are in our lives, what those changes are in our lives, so that we can step into exploring something else and being creative with who we are.
Now, how did you get started in this area of coaching and working with people to help them through this ongoing evolution that you talk about? What motivated you to go down this path?
It's a great question. Coaching is my reinvention, Ralph. For years, I was in corporate America. I was in retailing. I was a buyer. I was in HR. And then in my mid-30s, I started my family. And I said, I'm just going to stay home with my first child for a bit. I'll go back, or I'll start my own business. I'm going to be doing something. And then one kid led to a second kid, and one house led to another house, and then another house. And next thing I knew, I was a career stay-at-home mom. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was hurling toward a bigger birthday. And really, my internal whispering started to kick up its volume a little bit. So I kept asking myself, well, what am I going to be when I grow up? This next chapter, this is about me. What are all these skills? What is all this stuff I have and that I want to bring to the table? And I really had to step back for a moment, and I asked myself one question, okay, that connected me essentially to coaching. I asked myself, what would I do if it were 10 years ago? And the answer to that question changed my life, and now it changes other people's lives. Those same strategies, those tools that I used in my own transformation and my own pivot, essentially, form the foundation of my signature GPS coaching system, and an acronym for growth, purpose, and success steps. So it's really all about this whole toolbox that we all have, and all of our toolboxes are unique. It's our own experiences, whatever they are, the wins, the losses, all pulled together. And they all make up who we are and what our chapters of our story are. So being able to ask yourself what's next is a really important piece of that. And we don't always ask that, but there is always a next. There's always a twist or a tweak or the next endeavor, so to speak.
And you describe it as an ongoing evolution, and I really like that. The tool that you just shared with our listeners on asking yourself, if it was 10 years ago, what would you want to be doing? I do that to myself for 10 years, 20 years, and every time I ask that question, I get a different answer.
Beautiful.
So we're always evolving and learning and growing as we go. So you were kind of the person who shepherds someone to help them turn the pages in their life and go from one chapter to the next and keep it interesting and a page turner, if you will.
Oh, I love that. Yes, a page turner. Absolutely.
Cool. Now, tell me a little bit more about who you work with. Is there a particular type of person, or you could probably break it down by age, or but I don't know. You tell me, who is your ideal prospect or ideal client?
The ideal client is typically a woman, although that does not mean I don't have male clients, but it's typically a woman. Typically a woman mid-40s and beyond, who has gone through enough living, gone through enough twists and turns to say, okay, I've done this. I want to do that. Here's where I am. Now what? And really being able to address a lot of those things. So sometimes it's moving from that stay-at-home mom back into a workforce. Sometimes it's moving from a corporate structure into I want my own business. Sometimes it's empty nesting. Sometimes it's, becoming a mother for the first time, or a grandmother, or, there's so many varieties of things that impact how we transform and where we reinvent ourselves. And so, each one of those is kind of pause for thought, if you would, and often a place where people stop and say, okay, I could use a little help with this, a little support in this, getting through this and being able to do it well. So that's typically it.
That's really good. Jay Abraham talks about, he uses a phrase called cultural hypnosis. I think that's really appropriate to what we're talking about. It's important to remember that there is no right life situation or work situation that fits everybody. Everyone has different ideas of what success is, what happiness is. And as you say, Randi, for some, that means going back to work. For some, it means starting their own business. For others, it means they want to be an empty nester. And so it's really interesting. And the picture that comes to mind as we talk is an interstate highway. You've got lots of lanes going one direction. You've got lots of lanes going the opposite direction. And there is no right or wrong as long as you're going in the direction that you want to go in.
If I had fed you those lines, it couldn't be more perfect. The whole premise behind my having a GPS coaching system is that I will often say to a client or in a speaking engagement, picture this. You go out to your car and you program into your car's GPS the words, I don't know. Where's your car going to go? It's not going to go anywhere, right? So think about the GPS in your car on your cell phone as being your goal. That place you're going to on the highway, on the roadway, if you would. And you set that in and you say, I'm going to X destination. And that's important. We need to have a goal. But the real key to this is what you just said. It's our measurement of success. Because when we can measure success and define it for what it is for us, and that's every success, the small ones, the things we learned along the way, the tiny little pieces of growth, that's where we really understand how we're growing, how we're evolving. Okay, so when we just look at the goal, sometimes we just don't get there. Think about a New Year's resolution. We don't get there. How many of those go bust within a few months? It's that big thing. We're going to lose 20 pounds. And then what happens is we lose 10 and we lose interest because, we didn't lose 20. But if we're measuring success, we could then tweak that a bit and say, well, wait, I'm halfway there. I lost 10. That's really great. That would become our success and on our next point that we're embarking from. So if you were to get on that highway, you may decide you want to now take the back roads. So, the GPS alters again and you get off course and you go in a different direction, but you're staying on the road. And there's many different roads and many different ways to get to the same destination.
Excellent. I love it. And you've got mile markers. I'm at mile marker
absolutely
3 whatever, and I'm going to take exit 56 and go down this direction. And so, that's a really, really useful analogy, I think, for describing it. So as we embark on this journey, and everyone is going from where they are to where they want to be, there's some common problems out there on the road of life, right? So, I'm curious, what are some of the most common problems you see when you're helping the people that you help, and if there are some recurring themes here?
There's a huge recurring theme, and it is the theme of every single everybody. We all have this. We all have fear. Okay. But what happens with fear is it gets masked. Okay. So I will have a potential client or a client come to me and say, oh my gosh, I need help with time management skills because I'm just not getting things done. Or I'm just procrastinating, or I'm just feeling overwhelmed lately. And so no one there is saying, I'm really afraid that I'm not going to be successful at that. Or they're not saying, I'm really afraid of making that commitment. They're almost never using those words. And so when I'm coaching somebody, people give me their stories, their whole life story is in there. And stories are important, very, very important. And we have to know your story. But I'm not coaching the story. I'm coaching the emotion behind the story. And so that fear, when we start to get to that, that's the thing behind the thing. And we start to talk about, how can we poke holes in that? How can that become the elephant in the room? Because we know it's going to be on the road. We don't lose our fears. They're there. They're there from when we're little. Okay. And how can we share the road, so to speak? How can we know it's there, but keep going? And, fear is that thing. It shuts us down. It's scary. And we don't often realize that that's the thing that gets in the way. So being able to name it, being able to be mindful of it, and to acknowledge it is a big piece of that.
I really like how you get to the root of the issue. And that's what makes you so good at what you do, right? It's the thing behind the thing. I love that. And
well, it is. It is. And people sometimes will dance around for a couple of sessions with me of, and then I had this and then I did that. And it's kind of like, okay. And so coaching is very question driven, and you're kind of driving right into, feelings and stuff. And that's where it starts to come out when you kind of explore what's really going on. What's the reason that you didn't leave that relationship, or what's the reason that you didn't take that job? Why do you feel like you're stuck in place? So
that makes so much sense. And, everyone else, I try never to always generalize, right? It seems that everybody else on the internet is all about, here's 101 productivity hacks, to get more stuff done.
Hey, I wrote that. No. I probably did some version of but anyway.
Yeah, how to cram more things into your day. Right. And so they're dealing with the leaves of the tree instead of taking the axe to the root, which what you say is the fear. And I see that, and I think parallel with that is you don't even know what you want. You're so programmed in reaction mode and letting everyone else's agenda dictate to you what you should be and how you should think and what you should do, that you don't even know who you are anymore.
Correct. And that's exactly it. And so people will come to me essentially feeling lost in something. And it's not necessarily the thing they think they're lost in that winds up being the thing that they figure out, but Yeah. There's stuff like there's gum on the shoe.
So we could give them productivity hacks. And in my experience, all that does, it helps them get to where they don't want to be a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it does. Yes.
Or as Stephen Covey would say, we climb the ladder and then get to the top and realize the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. And so then,
well, there's more than one climb. So that's exactly why.
So you identified fear as the number one thing behind the thing, and that really resonates with me. What is someone listening right now? They're saying, yep, okay, I get that. The thing behind the thing. It's not being more productive. It's not procrastination. All of it, the root is fear. What is something that they can do right now to begin to see some immediate improvement in getting over this fear thing? And here I am asking for a hack, right? After I just said.
And I have one.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear it.
Well, here's the thing. I'm very much a listicles person. So anyone who works with me is being asked very often to make lists that no one has ever asked you to make in life. And so I'm about to ask your listeners to do the same. It's really important for us to be able to understand and measure our success and understand what our successes are and keep track of them. And it's equally important for us to understand and measure gratitude. And here's a way to do that. And I'm going to explain why that's important in a second. So keep some sort of a notebook, pad, something like that by your bed. And this takes minutes, but we're going to create a habit. So every night before you go to sleep, jot down on your list 3 things that were successes that day, 3 things that were highlights of your day. And they could be very tiny. It could be your teenage son coming over and saying, I love you, and giving you a kiss. It could be landing the biggest client you've ever had. So it could be anywhere, on that barometer of measurement of success, if you would, or highlights of your day. So 3 things before you go to sleep. Then you go to sleep. And when you wake up, instead of reaching for your cell phone so that you can see what's going on Instagram and Facebook and answer your emails, go ahead and stand up, stretch for a second, be mindful, feel rooted in where you're standing, and then jot down 3 things that you're grateful for. 3 things that you're grateful for, because we're all grateful for different things, but we don't, again, not so mindful sometimes. And, it may be for the first number of days the same thing. You may be writing down, I'm grateful for my family, or I'm grateful for my health. What's going to start to happen as that progresses, though, is that you're more than likely going to say, I'm grateful that I had that date night with my husband, or I'm grateful that my son is graduating from high school. It's going to start to break down a little bit. And then once a week, maybe on Sunday, take 5 minutes, review those lists, marry them. Where are their highlights and where are their gratitude pieces that overlap or don't overlap? Where is there something that as you're reading it, you're smiling? Okay. And then mindfully think about that. And then pick a day of the year. Maybe it's the anniversary of starting this. Maybe it's your birthday. Maybe it's New Year's Day. And take all of these lists that you're now ongoing and doing in every day as a habit. And then take a look at them. Read through them. See what stands out for you. See where there's common denominators. See where there's something you can lean into a little bit more. See where there's something that doesn't make any sense any longer, or something that was there that isn't there now. And what this does for us is a couple of things. It grounds us in the moment, okay, and allows us to be present today, okay? And when we're present, we're much more of service to ourselves and to everybody else, obviously. And also being grateful, it's almost impossible to share the road with fear and gratitude at the same time. It's very, very hard to be fearful if we're grateful. And if we're mindful of success, also more difficult to have that fear be something that's gripping us. So this is a really nice little hack, as you said, to bring all of those components together for you. And it's so easy to do and costs nothing.
That really, that is worth weeks and weeks of psychotherapy. What you just said, that is worth more than weeks and weeks of psychotherapy. This is so true. My favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life. And if George Bailey had this hack that you just gave our listeners, in the first place, we wouldn't have the rest of the movie, which makes sense. But if he had George Bailey's problem is he was focusing, he was focusing on everything going wrong, and it took that crisis for him to step back and do what you're suggesting. We become intentional about. When you get up in the morning, gratitude. What am I thankful for? I remember Tony Robbins saying something like, because I can hear there's always somebody that says, well, I don't have anything to be thankful for. I can't think of anything. He said, it doesn't matter. If all you can be thankful for just is to jump up and say, hallelujah, my feet don't stink today. Right. You can find something to be.
Yay.
Yeah. So, but I think because I've done this, I haven't been regular at it, but I'm going to now. You've inspired me, Randy, to start working this into my daily routine. When I have done that, I have noticed that I've been more mindful of all the things that are going right, and then the things that are not going so great. They just kind of diminished and didn't seem to be that big of a deal. And eventually they just kind of disappeared.
Yes. It shifts our focus.
Yeah, that's super. Now, how would someone benefit? I mean, I can already tell you just demonstrated it. Right?
Exactly. See, it's all about the shifting.
I mean, you've created such a shift in the energy in people just by having them focus on the right thing. If they were to work with you in a coaching relationship, how would that really improve their chances of success?
Good question. So coaching with me really allows you to step back from your life. And where do we allow ourselves to do that? We don't. So you get to step back from your life for a moment. And the beauty of it is you get to look back in at it from a different vantage point, from a different perspective. There's a lot of visioning, a lot of mirroring of things that you're saying that you may not even hear yourself saying, but I will certainly hear you say it. And when we change perspectives, we transform our lives. So the process of coaching itself is a bit magical. And I myself have had several coaches, so I can attest to this. It's reasonably quick. It's if you're doing the work involved and you're showing up, you're going to make major headway in 3 to 6 months time, definitely, maybe even quicker. And it's the ultimate investment in you. And, talk about hacks, but we think about, all these things that we buy where money kind of siphons away. So I'm guilty of most of these. So I can say this wholeheartedly. All those cappuccinos that we buy, getting my nails done on a weekly basis, vacations, all wonderful things, guys buying cigars or, going to a ball game, all wonderful things we should have in our life. But think about it. You drink that cappuccino, you have that great bottle of wine. Once it's gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. I get my nails done, they chip, that's done. You pay for coaching. That's an investment you make in you, because once the coaching's done, the modality doesn't leave you. The toolbox that you've now amassed doesn't leave you. The strategies that you worked on don't leave you. And you can reference those at any point in time. And so 6 months down the road, you see some behavior coming up for yourself or something surfacing, and you feel yourself leaning into that a bit. You can say, hey, wait a minute. When we were together and we were talking about X, this is what I did and it really worked. I'm going to try that again. And it's magical because it brings it right back and it keeps on giving. So it's really the ultimate investment that you can make in yourself that's a gift to you like no other.
I'm speaking with Randi Levin. She's the founder and CEO of Randi Levin Coaching. She's a transitional life strategist, author, speaker, and a reinvention expert. We've talked about transitional life strategists. Tell me about reinvention expert. Do you think that at some point people, maybe the best thing for them to do is just hit the reset button and start over? Is that reinvention? Explain your approach there.
Sure. Yes and no. Okay. So we can start over in that, yes, we can always try something new and should be trying something new. And that could be a lot of something new. Let's take, for example, somebody coming out of a divorce, which many of my clients are, in the throes of divorce. That's an absolute upheaval of almost every aspect of your life. And so when we look at that, there's a lot that has to be reset. But you have that tool set that I was talking about. So everything in our life gives us a point of view, gives us our unique twist and our unique thoughts as to how we proceed through it or how we got through something. And so if things aren't working to your liking, that teaches us something. When things are going well, that teaches us something. So we take all of that, and it's not that we're looking to get rid of it and toss it and say, oh, well, that last 20 years, we're just going to forget about that. We want to use that so that we can take what we know and really take it forward. What worked, what didn't work, where do we want to make those little shifts for ourselves? How does this make us stronger and smarter about something? So really being able to use what you have, repurpose what you have into what you want to have and be next. And I think people sell themselves short sometimes on having the skill set, so to speak, that they want to have for something and use that as a big excuse. Oh, I don't know how to do that, or I've never, managed whatever, but yet you've just, been a parent for how many years, or you've, done whatever. And if you take all those skills that we don't talk about as readily and really analyze what they are, you can apply and reapply them in different ways. And so I don't think it's like a complete reset as, out the window, but really being able to give yourself some credit for living and be able to use what you know in a productive way, in a new way.
I really like that. And you've got so many great ideas, so many frameworks for quickly shifting our focus. Obviously, you've got a lot of practice at this. And so my next question, I want to shift gears a little bit and maybe kind of get inside your brain a little bit. And the question is, when you need some extra motivation, what works for you? What do you do when you need that extra boost or that motivation, unless you're up there at 100% all the time?
Well, of course I'm not, because I'm human, just like you.
Yes.
What I do is, it's probably not what you're going to expect me to say, but it's the God honest truth. I pause. And sometimes the pauses could be long, and sometimes they're very short. But I actually will pause, and I will, stop kind of what I'm doing the way I'm doing it and reevaluate a little bit, to step away and allow myself to be. Because we're all so busy doing that sometimes we forget that we need to spend time being. And, the example I always like to give is that, think about you meeting a friend for lunch, and you go to some really nice cafe, and it's maybe a snowy, beautiful day outside or whatever. And you sit down, and what do? We take out our cell phones. We start mindlessly scrolling through stuff because we can't take anything in. What happens if you don't do that? What happens if you can smell what's going on in the kitchen, and if you can see how beautiful it is outside, and if you can listen in on that really interesting conversation that's happening at the next table, if you can use your senses and bring yourself back to who you are, you connect. And so, I'll use nature, I'll go for hikes. And there's times that I will just mindfully and purposely say, okay, I am, for the weekend or for the week or for the next month even, going to be more in the being. And it shifts things. It shifts them a lot, and really does allow you to reprogram. How we plug in our cell phones, and we plug in our computers to recharge them. And sometimes we as people need that recharging as well. We don't give ourselves the time and the space to do that. So
yeah, excellent.
That's a big one. It's
recharge, reboot, reset. It's, we do need to do that more often. So that's really cool. I like that. Randi, I wish we had more time, but before we close up, I want to ask, what are you working on right now that's got you really excited?
Well, this year I launched my Signature GPS coaching program as a 5-week virtual workshop, and it was done live and through video. It was interactive, and I'm very proud of the contents of the program. So I've decided to relaunch the audio component of that Reinvention Summit as a 5-hour audio-only paid workshop. So I'm working on making that come to life right now. And I'm so excited about it, Ralph, that I want to offer one of those hours of my signature program on fear for free to your audience right now. And this is not available on my website. You can't even buy it. So it's a really, really wonderful offer. It's 60 minutes of an audio. It's called Moving from Fear to Fearing Less. And it's chock full of actionable content and real life strategies to circumvent and embrace fear, and comes with a PDF as well. And you can access that at the following. It's www.randilevin, it's RANDILEVIN coaching.com/download-free-audio. I'll repeat that one more time. www.randilevincoaching.com/download-free-audio.
That's excellent. As soon as we get off the air here, I think I'm going to have to go download that and take a look at it and listen to it. Take a listen, because you've really had some excellent words of wisdom. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners as we say until next time?
Well, I want to invite everybody to connect, first of all. So on my website at www.randilevincoaching.com, and you can email me at randy@randilevincoaching.com, and I love the conversation. And I have 3 C's before we leave that I just want to run by you. One is challenge your story, right? Because we talked about before, we sometimes become fixated on what we feel we can't do or can't accomplish. So challenge that. Bring yourself back to the current moment, okay? Which leads us to changing your thoughts. Ask yourself, what can I do, okay? Figure out what you want and why you want it, and don't think so much about the how. The how is where the fear comes in. So what you want and why you want it, and what can you do now? So challenging your thoughts, challenging your story, and then choosing that legacy. So what's next? Start from today. How can you be creative and give yourself that opportunity and possibility in your life?
Excellent. Words of wisdom from Randi Levin, founder and CEO of Randi Levin Coaching. Thank you so much, Randi, for being on the episode today. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. You too, Ralph. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at ralphbrogden.com.